Hello and welcome to the next virtual science lesson. This one is all about the structure of the leaf. The first thing I'd like you to consider is how is a plant like an animal? So pause the video and write some ideas down. Just like us, plants go through Mrs. Gren. Movement, plants move, they move towards the sunlight, they respire, they're sensitive because they grow towards the sun, they grow, they reproduce, they excrete, and they need nutrition. So just like us, they go through all 7 life processes. Plants are also made up of cells, tissues, organs, and of course that makes an organ system. What organelles does a plant cell have? Let's have a little think. So a typical plant cell looks something like this. It has a cell wall which is made of cellulose, which strengthens the cell. And if you remember back to the osmosis video, that's what stops the cell from kind of bursting if it gets filled with water. A cell membrane, which lets things in and out. A vacuole, which contains cell sap and helps to support the cell. The chloroplasts, which contain chlorophyll, which is needed in photosynthesis. The nucleus, which contains the genetic information and controls what the cell does. And the cytoplasm, which is where chemical reactions happen. Missing off this diagram is the mitochondria and the ribosomes, which are also in a plant cell. Where do you think plant tissues are found? They're found in the leaf, in the roots, the shoots. And in the leaf we have the epidermal tissue, the Palisade Mesophyll, the Spongy Mesophyll, the Xylem, and the phloem. Now there's some really big words there, so don't worry too much because I'm going to explain what they all do in a second. A plant has organs just like you and I, and on the video that was about cells to organ systems, we said that a leaf was a plant's organ. So the leaf carries out photosynthesis, the stem supports the leaves and the flowers to go upright, and the root anchors the plant in the soil and absorbs the water and mineral ions from the soil water. These organs form a plant organ system for the transport of substances around the plant. Here we've got the structure of a leaf, and this is a diagram you'll see a lot in textbooks or in exam papers. I want you to just compare it to this microscope slide. So can you see the waxy cuticle at the top of the layer of uppy epidermis cells? Can you see the Palisade Mesophyll cells that have got those chloroplasts? What about the Spongy Mesophyll? These are all the parts that a leaf has, and they're all specially adapted to help the leaf carry out its function. I'd like you to pause the video and to draw a rough idea of this diagram and leave lots of space around it so you can add the labels and what they do. So we're going to start off with the waxy cuticle. Now leaves are often shiny, especially on the upper side, and this is because they're covered in a layer of waxy material called the cuticle. The cuticle is waterproof and it acts to stop the leaf losing too much water in hot, dry weather. Now hopefully you've got a plant nearby, but if not, I've got an example of one. This is a Monstera adenosi, and you can see that this plant's quite shiny and waxy, and that's that waxy cuticle at the top. So you'll see this particularly on any sort of succulent plant, so cactuses or aloe vera, they have a really thick shiny layer which is a waxy cuticle. And you have to consider where those plants are. If they're in the desert, they're going to need a thick layer to stop them losing water, otherwise they're going to end up pretty crispy. The next section is the upper epidermis. So immediately under the waxy cuticle there's a layer of cells, and these cells are quite transparent and allow most of the light that strikes them to pass through to the cells underneath. So remember that word transparent means it lets light through. The next section is the Palisade Mesophyll. The cells contain a lot of chloroplasts, and this is where photosynthesis takes place. The cells towards the upper surface of the leaf are shaped like bricks, and they're arranged neatly side by side, and they're called the palisade cells. Whenever you're asked to draw or label a plant cell, it will be a palisade cell that you are drawing because they're filled with chloroplasts. And under a microscope, they look a little bit like this. The other mesophyll layer is the spongy mesophyll, and here the cells are irregular and a little bit rounded in their arrangement, whereas the palisade mesophyll, they're very brick-like and in a row. It allows for gases to diffuse in and out of the plant cells. These gases are oxygen and carbon dioxide, which are needed in photosynthesis and respiration. And they're literally like a sponge, so a sponge that would absorb water. Well, in this case, it's absorbing gases and letting gases flow around to where they're needed in the leaf. The very bottom of a leaf is the stomata and the guard cells. The stomata are holes on the underside of the leaf, and they allow gases to diffuse in and out and water vapour to escape. Guard cells control the opening and closing of the stomata, a little bit like a set of doors or security guards. They close in dry hot water to stop too much water evaporating. So they look a little bit like this, which is very strange. And when the guard cells are open, water is able to leave the plant as well as gases to get in and out. So on a hot day, they need to close, the security guard needs to bar the way and stop it happening so that water isn't lost. So we're going to do a progress check here. For number 1, what is the function of the spongy mesophyll tissue? 2, what is a meristem, which if that makes no sense to you, go back and watch the video on stem cells. Number 3, why does the palisade layer have so many chloroplasts? Number 4, what is the function of the upper epidermis? And number 5, why would a cactus have a thick, waxy cuticle? So the function of the spongy mesophyll tissue is to allow for gases to diffuse in and out of the plant cells. These gases are oxygen and carbon dioxide and are needed for photosynthesis and respiration. A meristem is a plant stem cell, and it's found in the roots and shoots, and it can differentiate into any type of cell. The palisade layer has lots of chloroplasts because it's where photosynthesis happens. And the function of the upper epidermis is to be transparent to allow light to pass through to the palisade cells. A cactus would have a thick waxy cuticle to prevent water loss from evaporation. There are 2 more sections of the leaf that it's really important to know about. We're going to talk about them in a lot more detail in the next video on plant transport, but it's important just that you know that they're there for now. The first one is the xylem, and the second one is the phloem. Leaf veins are made up of 2 parts, the xylem, which is towards the top, and the phloem, which is below. The xylem brings water and mineral salts to the leaf from the roots, and the phloem takes the sugars that are made in the leaf during photosynthesis, and they carry them away from the leaf towards all the other parts of the plant where they can be used. So I'm going to just recap that structure of the leaf one more time with a different diagram. We have the waxy cuticle at the top. Remember that waxy cuticle prevents water loss, and it tends to be really thick in plants that are in a desert or a really hot environment. Underneath the waxy cuticle, we've got the upper epidermis, and the upper epidermis is this section here, and those cells are transparent to allow light to pass through. Underneath that, we have the palisade cells, which is the Palisade Mesophyll, and this is where photosynthesis happens because they're filled with chloroplasts, which convert the sun's light into food. Underneath that, we have got the Spongy Mesophyll, and you can see straight away how different the structure is here. There's all this space here between them all, where gases are able to get in and out. Now, those gases that I'm talking about enter the plant through the stomata, and the stomata are these teeny tiny holes here. So carbon dioxide will go into the plant through here, And when oxygen is obviously made during photosynthesis, it's able to leave the plant through those stomata. Now, either side of the stomata, there's these really important cells called guard cells, and the guard cells are like the security guards at the doors that open and close. So if gases or water, if we want them to leave the plant, then the guard cells will be like this, which means the gas can come in and out. However, if we don't want that to happen, then they'll close. I'm going to talk about that with a little bit more detail in the next video. So the final activity I'd like you to do is to consider, how is the leaf adapted for photosynthesis? You've got all the information to the left, so pause the video, answer the question, and thank you for watching.